sleep is a very much a part of it. In fact, I can say it's a foundation. So what actually happens in sleep is that whatever we have learned, whatever experiences we've had during sleep, our brain really works. We are sleeping, but the brain is working very, very hard in terms of trying to reconnect our new experiences with our old experiences, trying to consolidate learning, trying to make sense of what has happened, even process emotions.
So that's why in our childhood, parents used to say no all-nighter, sleep early before exams. I now can connect.
Yeah.
So I picked up one word when you were talking about breathing practice, that is hypnosis. I know this word has a lot of mystery around it. If you can quickly give us an idea about it.
So again, as we all know, there are a lot of we have all seen in movies and popular literature that
the dwindling pocket watch.
And probably now the hypnotherapist can just get any information out of that particular person, but this is not true. The first thing that I want to add on is
disclaimer.
It is as natural as we sleep. Sleep is a natural process. We sleep every day. And I also want to add to something here, that we all are actually in hypnosis.
Stress is always bad.
No, so this is definitely a myth. Stress, some amount of stress is actually required. In fact, we have a term called eustress that's required for us to perform well.
I agree to this.
Yeah, so a basic optimal level of stress helps us actually become a little more alert. It helps us use our abilities. It helps us go out of our comfort zone. So if it's a good stress, which we say optimal level of stress, it actually helps us get better than what we are.
Perform
it's
better.
It's required actually to be able to do well.
Hello everyone, welcome to the show where we talk about everything related to your studies, career, health, self-help, self-improvement plans and whatnot. A lot of times it has happened with most of us, we just go blank, we freeze, and we absolutely have no idea why it happened. Like in an interview, we know the questions, the answers cold, but at that point of time, you just go blank. Why it happens, we do not know. Basically, the reason is, the answer is our subconscious mind. Today, we are going to talk about this subconscious mind and how we can train it to work in our favor instead of working against us. To do that, today we do have Dr. Moksha Bhatnagar, clinical and Ericksonian hypnotherapist, Master's Counseling Psychology from Delhi University. Welcome, Dr. Moksha.
Thank you. Hi. So, I'm Dr. Moksha and I'm a counseling psychologist, and I've been working as a counselor and a psychology facilitator for the last 15 years. I worked in schools, and I worked with parents, children, as a counselor, as a therapist, as well as a private practitioner using modalities like hypnotherapy, NLP, backflow remedies, EFT, and many more. So I think today we are going to be delving deeper into what subconscious mind is and how we can use it to work for us.
Oh, basically training the dragon,
Yeah, definitely.
in our favor.
Yeah.
Okay, so without wasting much time, I will go to my first question, and that is super basic. And that is, what is subconscious mind? And what is the difference between subconscious mind and conscious mind? If you can tell us in the most simple language.
Yeah. So basically, sometimes saying that mind is one single unit, whereas there are different levels of processing that are happening in our mind. So very simply speaking, conscious mind is something which we use for our daily activities. Like right now when we are talking, understanding a concept, or we are learning something, we are trying to analyze certain things, we are using our conscious mind. However, subconscious mind is something that is below the awareness of conscious mind, which is used for various automatic habits, like for example, habits that we have developed, automatic reactions. Subconscious mind is something that is basically a whole reservoir of a lot of experiences, lot of things that we have experienced. If we kind of give a simple analogy, our conscious mind is like the captain of a ship, which makes a decision where to go, which route to take, what should be the speed of the boat. Whereas the subconscious mind is like a engine, which is doing a lot of things on an automatic process. Like, it is running a lot of automatic functions we need. Or you can say that the relationship between subconscious and conscious is, the conscious can be, taken as the mahout, and the subconscious can be taken as an elephant. Till the time the mahout doesn't have a good connection, rapport with the elephant, no matter what it does, the elephant is not going to follow or learn what it wants it to learn. So basically, subconscious and conscious work in tandem, they work together. And the subconscious mind is something that basically has all our automatic responses, our habits that we've
If you can
learned.
just give us an example, like in real life, what we do which is controlled by subconscious mind and what we do is controlled by conscious mind. Just a simple example. Yeah.
So conscious mind, basically every our daily activities like reading, writing, learning certain concepts, analyzing, making decisions, weighing two options. These are all activities that the conscious mind is doing.
Yes.
The subconscious is basically all those things that have got we have been exposed to. For example, our beliefs, our repetitive some actions, are repetitive some patterns, some like for example, a lot of us have noticed that every time I see an ad of sale, I immediately think, okay, I need I will run and I will buy something, or maybe I will think, oh, it's a good option, let me just buy something.
It is happening in our mind.
Yeah,
that
so
okay, we need to avail this.
Yes. So it's sale. Somewhere the feeling is, oh no, if I don't make use of this opportunity, maybe I'm losing something. Whereas I might not need those things also for which which I'm buying. So these are basically, it's a subconscious, it's a repetitive thing that every time for example, every time I get into an argument, to manage that stress or to manage that unpleasantness, I start having something which can calm me down. It can be from a cup of coffee to stress eating to cigarette or something even more. So our repetitive reactions or repetitive actions, these are all coming from our subconscious. A lot of times we have all thought many times of, okay, so for example, late night, some of us do that late night munching. Now we all after that we feel guilty, why did I do that? I don't want to do it.
I can relate to that stress eating. Whenever I am under stress, I all do
that. We all do that. For someone it could be, so we all have those comfort foods. For someone it could be coffee, for someone it could be something
so
more
sugary has something to do with
definitely
subconscious
all our addictions, starting from be it food, be it other substance abuse, be it even shopping, even probably even sometimes some people want to consume certain other products. They are all coming from subconscious. So it's not that we are not aware, that we do not need to, like we all know that this is my 6th cup of coffee today. It's not that we don't know, but it's because subconsciously it's something that my mind is associated with calmness, comfort. Yeah, it's taking over. So basically
I can relate whenever like I've seen people who has anger issues.
Exactly.
They throw things, abuse, or they know it is not good, it is not the right time, right place, but they do it.
Yeah, and later they later regret, and they feel bad about it also. It's not that they are not aware, but somewhere that is what they do in that particular moment. So that is somewhere because it's become a repetitive action, repetitive reaction, which is coming from the subconscious mind. Consciously they might be telling, oh, I don't want to lose my cool, I want to talk in a more calm manner. They might have had these conversations many times with themselves, but somewhere in that moment, in that moment they lose cool and they could not control their anger. So a lot of our behaviors, if we start
these
from
are all negatives. Do we have any positive subconscious, I would say, subconscious mind doing something positive in average cases? Like a lot of us experience it. If you can tell us.
So whatever we are doing, for example, even like let's say, we are having, so subconscious is something that is there, in every aspect, whatever we do.
We saw a lot of negative outcomes of subconscious mind when subconscious mind is taking over all these anger issues and everything, the reactions. If you can talk about some positive outcomes, or how in day-to-day life just control us, but we do not even realize.
Yeah, so subconscious mind is always supporting us. The examples that I gave are, when we are not able to connect with our subconscious in a positive way, but our subconscious is always supporting us. It's always guiding us. Like all of us have had that hunch, like while, interacting with a particular person, we realize that, okay, whatever they're trying to tell us, let's say I'm trying to look for a house, and maybe, the person is trying to
Sell me something. Yes,
and they're trying to say that, okay, this project is going to be completed in the next 3 months, but and everything seems to be very good, but somewhere I have a hunch that I need to hold on. Maybe I was about to make that deal, but something in me, a very small voice says, hold on, wait, maybe check from the other person. Or for that matter, sometimes, my exams are about 2 months ahead, but I somewhere have this hunch, I need to prepare it right now. And later I realized that there was some event in the family that could not, help me prepare well for the, So we are always, or for that matter, maybe.
And how it happens, I would like to know.
Yeah.
How do I get that hunch? How do I get that gut feelings, as we say it?
So I think the subconscious mind is basically absorbing, like I said, the conscious mind, it is more focused on the everyday tasks, the nitty-gritties, the details of the things that we are doing. However, the subconscious mind is absorbing a lot more. Like for example, in a meeting, let's say the boss or the project lead is sharing certain, targets, or so those are the nitty-gritties, but somewhere my subconscious mind is noticing that that person's body language, their facial reactions, and we absorb a lot, what's going in their mind. So somewhere that
we don't even realize that all these things are
at a conscious level, I'm focusing on the information that I need to take in from that particular meeting, the targets, the numbers,
notes.
But at a very deeper level, there's more deeper processing that's happening. Like, what is the overall body language? Is that person right now, maybe this targets, he's asking the team, but it's actually not something that he also believes that can be achieved. So all this, the subconscious is noticing through his body language, through his facial expressions.
And what will be the outcome if my subconscious understands that even my lead is also not in the same page? He also does not believe that this is an attainable target.
See, for most of us,
we won't be able to achieve the target.
No, I think for most of us, what has happened is because we are so much in the present moment that we are so much in the activity oriented. Most of the time, we have one activity after other. So sometimes these small hunches, we do not probably give that much attention. And if you don't give them attention, they will kind of go down. It's only sometimes it also happens that something happens. And then we say, oh, I did feel that, I should have not gone ahead with this deal, or I should have not gone ahead with this particular purchase.
Oh, regrets.
So we all have these kind of experiences.
Absolutely.
Everyone would have had it. Basically, the thing is that the more we pay attention to these small hunches, I'm not saying that, we need to be completely driven by them. The subconscious is able to, kind of notice, absorb more than is at the surface level, and that's why we all have hunches, we all have intuitions. It's just that how much we try to.
So then why there is a difference? Is it possible that someone has a better sixth sense, which we have seen, and others do not, or a gender particularly has a stronger sixth sense? And because somehow I just got this question, so I just
it's a very interesting question. And yes, definitely some see, we all do observe body language, but some people probably they are able to have a better connection with their subconscious mind, because maybe they know how to be in rapport with their subconscious mind by various activities, like maybe they kind of do journaling, or they probably respect the hunch that they got, because all of us do get those hunches. It's just that how much attention do we pay to it, or how much do we feel that, we should at least pause and just,
How much we trust ourselves.
So definitely that it is, some people they are more intuitive, but it can also be developed. And as you said about the gender specific thing, women are definitely a little more, I won't say intuitive, but they are definitely more tuned into reading the body language, the facial expressions, the tone. So probably
That's why they are programmed.
And it is not always gender specific. Some people, by it's the way they are, they probably pay a lot of attention on those slight changes in tone, the body language. So it basically depends, how much you want to pay attention, how much you want to make use of that information. Sometimes, when we are in a lot of rush, when we are stressed out, and we just notice on what the words the person is saying. We're not able to notice what is the tone, okay, what were the slight changes in their movement. So it is a lot about how much you pay attention to it, how much you train yourself to do it, because as any skill, it is something that you can get better at.
Yes, as
but it's
we were
only
saying,
yes, it will
subconscious
only
can be
happen
trained.
when we pay attention to it, when we think it's important. So I think that is something that we should really help students in very early ages also. We should focus on helping them understand, when we talk about communication skills, when we talk about group interaction, we should help students from a very early age develop this skill, because if we work on that at that age, it is very natural. We need to help them understand that it's they can communicate better when they're able to really notice those body language, those shifts in their physiology of the person. And this is something that probably naturally lot of caregivers, mothers, teachers, people in the areas who are dealing with human beings, they're doing. Like for example, a lot of times you will notice a doctor has written a medicine, a particular procedure, and they see a little hesitance in the patient. So the patient didn't say anything, but the doctor immediately feels the need to reassure the person a little more. No, nothing came from the patient. It was basically the doctor who was able to read that the patient is right now a little not comfortable with the mode of treatment that is being suggested. So a lot of people who are dealing with the professions which are human centric, I think these skills somewhere are more needed. So somewhere you will always see doctors, nurses, teachers, counselors, they're somewhere more developed in this skill, because I think their job requires it, and somewhere unconsciously it was not that they were probably like that from the
Born
beginning.
with it.
Some of them were, but some of them develop it besides the other skills, because that is required to be a good
moving our topic
Yeah.
of the day.
Yeah.
Like a subconscious can be trained.
yeah.
From this, I could not wait to ask you this question while researching about this topic. I came across one thing more than anything else, that is the connection between subconscious and sleep. If you can tell us about that.
That's a very good question actually, because a lot of times, and especially when we talk about students and young professionals, we focus a lot on activity. We want to do a lot of things. Even a student, they want to complete the entire syllabus. They want to focus on so there's a lot of focus on doing. But and sometimes, somewhere we also feel, even if I sleep a little less, few days before my exams, it's fine.
Pulling
It's
all-nighters.
required. It's required. That's something that, that is what we don't realize is that sleep is not separate from learning. It is not separate from our performance. Sleep is very much a part of it. In fact, I can say it's a foundation. So what actually happens in sleep is that whatever we have learned, whatever experiences we've had during sleep, our brain really works. We are sleeping, but the brain is working very, very hard in terms of trying to reconnect our new experiences with our old experiences, trying to consolidate learning, trying to make sense of, what has happened, even process emotions.
So that's why in our childhood, parents used to say no all-nighter, sleep
Yeah.
early before exams. I now can connect.
Yeah, and in fact, a lot of emotional issues also. The brain is working very hard to regulate those
Yes,
situations.
this
Let's
is
say,
also something very, very important because students, young professionals, or people between the age, like from teenage to a certain age, you go through multiple emotional
yeah.
issues.
So let's say someone is having some kind of conflicts at work and it's a little emotionally difficult situation. So while we are sleeping, the brain tries to process those emotions. The brain tries to probably even help us understand how we can deal with that situation. Probably, by maybe sometimes a person will have a lot of dreams related to that situation, to that conflict. Somewhere the brain is trying to process those emotions and also build up
I'll
that.
stop you here because you mentioned one word that caught me. So do you are you saying subconscious, dream, sleep, all these are connected, interrelated things?
Yeah, they are definitely interrelated in the sense that sleep is something that helps make sense of whatever we have experienced in the living reality. It makes sense of it. So basically, sleep is like a librarian. It tries to organize all our experiences in meaningful situation. In fact, a lot of times you will notice that sometimes when we are studying a lot, we're doing a lot of things, but the sleep is less. Though you are learning, but the next day the kind of
Not being able to
you
keep
will not be
it.
able to remember it. You will not be able to use that learning. So sleep helps organize all that learning. It helps us connect it with our older life because the sleep helps connect our experiences with our earlier experiences, process emotions, and most importantly, it helps us prepare for the coming future, whatever requirements we have. If I'm having an exam in a week, it will help me.
So basically, does it connect between? Is sleep a connector between conscious and subconscious, something like that?
Yeah, you can say it is kind of a
Bridge.
It's kind of a bridge. It is kind of a time when the brain gets that opportunity because all other functions are a little, they are not so active. It gives an opportunity to really work on organizing, assimilating, connecting, integrating our experiences, working on our, maybe what, future, what I would need to probably even pacing my mind. Okay, so how am I going to be doing it? And sometimes a lot of solutions come, when we see
In our
it has
sleep.
happened everywhere for scientists, from inventors. Sometimes we sleep with an issue, we sleep with a problem. It's a, saying also that we sleep over it. The reason is that because certain connections we're not able to build up while we're awake. But when we sleep, those
When
connections,
conscious was in
yes,
play.
when conscious was active. So when we sleep, those connections are made, and we are able to the next day we're able to make better sense of it, or we understand the sequence or understand our next step. So definitely it is something that really helps us actually make use of our learning, and that's why if someone is thinking that okay, reduce sleep and add more activity,
That most
that
of
is
us,
what-
most probably, most of us
so
do.
that has become the trend because somewhere, we equate a lot of activity, a lot of doing with growth,
Achievements.
with achievement. But the process that's supporting learning, we need to understand and give a little bit more importance to it.
And if I do not have enough sleep, I'm sorry, I'm just continuing, enough sleep for a longer time, what will happen?
Yeah, so see, I do understand that once in a while our sleep, we might be a little deprived of some sleep, or we might not be able to sleep the adequate hours. So once in a while, it will not impact our brain or our overall efficiency, but it becomes a daily pattern. If it becomes a regular pattern, it is definitely going to impact the way we process information, the way we retain information. Like I said, it's something
Yes.
we have studied everything. I've completed my syllabus.
Go blank.
But the next day, I am not able to probably remember or use it, or my processing is not that, my processing speed will go down, my ability to understand and use that information will not do that great, because somewhere the work that was required to assimilate and integrate that information, we have not given that time for the mind to
Perfect.
do that.
Perfect.
And one thing which, like you said, the dreams are also connected. Dreams also help us basically process and kind of, integrate a lot of things that are happening around us. So we will a lot of times have dreams, where we have recurring days. Probably like everyone has that dream that they're about to enter the exam hall and they don't have their admit card or something else, and that is basically, and then probably not even a student now, but that's basically, or they have to submit a homework on a particular day and they have not done it and something like that. So basically a lot of our emotions which we experience in a daily basis, but we do not have the time
Directly and indirectly. Or what you say? Do we need to experience it firsthand, or we can see someone facing that and our brains capture it?
It
Can
can
that-
be both, but mostly it's more like a lot of things that we're experiencing in our daily life, and we do not have the time to process it. We do not have the time. We are rushing from one activity to other. So there are a lot of emotions, but we are experiencing a lot of emotions. So those emotions, because we are not able to experience them in our daily life, we are not able to process them, or they are somewhere having an impact on us. We will have dreams that are connected with the theme of the dreams will be connected to that emotion. So mostly, rather than a lot of times in the popular literature or culture, generally there's a I can say generally there's a understanding that dreams they predict future, or they can, so sometimes they can, but mostly they're basically helping us process, understand, and probably overcome whatever challenges we are facing. So we need to be very mindful of if there are recurrent themes, what is the emotion behind it, rather than focusing on the overall incident. So for example, if I've forgotten my admit card in the exam hall, what is the emotion? That's anxiety, that's overwhelm. So basically they are kind of making us understand what kind of emotion is it that I'm dealing with. Maybe I'm not processing it, so it's coming out in the form of dreams. So dreams also help in emotional regulation. They do help us managing our emotions. So dreams are basically something which again help us we understanding what's happening. They're again a subconscious way of showing us what is happening within us. And again, if you're not sleeping enough, we will not be able to dream enough, because there is a particular time when we dream. So during the REM stage of sleep, we have dreams. Now if the sleep,
If in one sentence you can say.
so in fact, even dreams are very important way the subconscious kind of shows what is happening within us. Again, if you're not able to sleep properly, if the sleep quality or the quantity is less, the dreaming procedure will also not be adequate. We will not be able to have proper dreams, because dreams only happen during generally the REM stage of sleep, and that we will not have if we do not have adequate sleep. So dreams help us kind of process our emotions, kind of integrate whatever is happening around us. So for example, if we're facing some kind of emotional situation that is bothering us, it could be anxiety or something, it kind of helps us process that through dreams. Again, dreaming and sleep are deeply interconnected, and if sleep is not adequate, it's not of good quality, the dreaming procedure will also be affected, and that affects our subconscious, and somewhere it will also affect our daily life in terms of lowering our processing ability, learning ability. So we need to be very, very important, we parents, students, to pay a lot of attention on having good sleep hygiene and maintain
I just captured one word you said, REM.
REM.
REM stage of sleep. If you just quickly in one sentence say.
The REM is rapid eye movement. That is a stage of sleep when we actively dream a lot. That is the time when we, and these cycles, so we have a non-rapid eye movement, NREM and REM. So we keep shifting from these two stages, and these stages, REM is when we sleep, have dreams rapidly. And if this sleep is disturbed, then definitely the time for REM will also get reduced. So we somewhere have to be very mindful of our sleep. We have to give it that kind of respect and importance that it deserves. And I think somewhere it has to come from parents and educators, that sometimes we give that impression that okay, the more you work harder, you can cut on sleep. But somewhere we need to help students inculcate a very good sleep
Sleep pattern.
from the very beginning. And yes, from time to time, sometimes it is possible that we do not get enough sleep. I'm not talking about some
Months together or so, but
if it's
a day or
regular
two.
pattern for a student to really cut on sleep towards the end of
That's because that's we do naturally.
that we do.
Everything
That
else is
and
important,
that's
but
very
sleep.
acceptable. That is something that in fact people
Are very proud of,
that I
yes.
slept at 3. I think that is something that should be really, that should be something as a practice. It should be spoken about in classrooms by parents, that sleep is something that we need to give importance, because somewhere, there are a lot of distractions for sleep, but
Mobile being the first one.
everything, I think, mobile, everything, but somewhere we need to really help students understand the importance of, because ultimately
Sleep.
they want to do well, but if they do not, and it's not only about their performance, it's the overall long-term effects on their processing speed, their learning capacity, lot of things. So some emotional regulation. Now, on a very long-term basis, if a person is having poor sleep quality, definitely the emotional regulation is
So basically, you're trying to say sleep has a great role to play towards training our subconscious mind.
definitely. So I think one takeaway that I really want from this podcast is,
Everyone to take out.
besides everything else, is that really giving sleep that importance that it deserves, because what all improvements we are expecting in our life or we want in our life, the first foundation is sleep. Be it improvement in our relationships, be it improvement in our ability to learn, perform better, be it better health, it all basically starts from sleep. I would rather say even before our diet and other areas, because sleep regulates a lot of other functions. So, and especially for students, very important it is to be very mindful of their sleep quality also.
So basically, you're saying sleep is that tool, and we learn to have good quality sleep, and that is the technique we need to learn. So, if you can tell us about few more tools and techniques which will help us train our subconscious.
So I think we have already discussed about sleep and dreams. One very important aspect is, first of all, self-talk that we have. We all talk to ourselves constantly. Now,
In our mind.
in our mind, events keep happening. There will be certain things that will not go the way we want. There will be certain interactions that will not be as per our liking. But then, what is that immediate reaction to that? Let's say I gave an interview and somewhere things didn't fall in the way they should. What is my first reaction? I will never get that job I want, or I'm not good enough. So we need to be very mindful of our self-talk. We all
Positive self-talk you're talking about. Yeah.
and it should not be kind of forced, but probably I think again to be aware, what kind of self-talk we are having. Again, I will bring journaling. So sometimes we ourselves are not aware what kind of self-talk we have. We might be talking to ourselves in that way, but we're not aware. So it's important that to spend some time journaling. Okay, so for example,
So is there any particular time when you suggest to journal?
Journaling is always a very good activity, because it helps us actually see what our thoughts are, put them in a structured manner. A lot of times, we have a lot of things going in our mind, but we actually, when we write them down, we understand, okay, what are the next steps? What is it that's actually bothering me? Till the time we don't write, we sometimes are restless, but we don't know what's bothering me. So there's no particular time, but definitely if you do it around half an hour before sleeping or just after waking up, it has more impact, because generally these are two times when your subconscious mind is more active, just before sleeping and just after getting up. We are still in that twilight zone when the conscious mind has not taken over completely. The subconscious mind is active. So probably after getting up, maybe if you can spend some 5 to 10 minutes, if you don't have more time, and before, probably a very good activity is to end your day with journaling, and whatever areas you felt were not as per your liking or expectations, you can write about that. So what happened? What was my, my reaction to it? What did I say? So when this one said this, what did I say? So I think not once or twice, but over a period of time, we'll be aware of our self-talk, our automatic reactions, that if like a lot of times whenever I'm given a feedback, I try to defend myself. So these patterns will start coming up once we do journaling. And I'm not saying that we need to spend a lot of time. I think
5 minutes you
consistency is
said.
more important.
Yes.
You can spend 10 minutes, 5 minutes, but if you do it over a period of a month, there'll be a lot of data about you that you will be knowing, you'll be aware of. That was basically
Self-awareness will be built.
Self-awareness will be there.
You told us about sleep. Quality sleep. You told us about journaling. You told us about positive self-talk. Anything else?
So I think adding again a very important key takeaway, key important aspect is breath. So again, be it any activity where we want to connect with our deeper self, it starts with breathing. Be it calming down before an important situation, meditation,
So we say breathe in, breathe out.
or even for that matter,
Deep breath.
therapy, any kind of relaxation practice. Breathing is something you begin with. So again, there are many ways of relaxation through breathing. Many techniques of deep breathing. But simply focusing on breathing in and out is very important, because it also again helps us calm down. Because when our system is when our nervous system is very anxious, we cannot really work on ourselves in a very positive way. So it's very important to include breathing. So probably before journaling, we can have 3 to 4 minutes of breathing. There are a lot of breathing exercises on internet.
Are you talking about pranayam kind of things?
Definitely, but even if we don't have that kind of time, I think before journaling also, or before any kind of important interview or any kind of important exam, we can just do some kind of deep breathing. Again, I would add that somewhere in our daily. So the thing is that if we inculcate these things from the very beginning in our classrooms, in our educational setups, it becomes a
Practice.
Natural
Natural
it's not
practice.
something that the person has to do specifically. We become that, and it doesn't take time. So like probably we have a test now in 10 minutes. The whole class does breathing exercise. So we need breathing is again something that helps us.
Should be part of our system.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So I picked up one word when you were talking about breathing practice, that is hypnosis. I know this word has a lot of mystery around it. If you can quickly give us an idea about it.
So again, as we all know, there are a lot of we have all seen in movies and popular literature that
The dwindling
going with hypnosis,
pocket watch.
and probably now the hypnotherapist can just get any information out of that
Yes.
particular person, but this is not true. The first thing that I want to add on is
Disclaimer.
it is as natural as we sleep. Sleep is a natural process. We sleep every day. And I also want to add to something here, that we all are actually in hypnosis a lot of times.
Okay. How is
For
that?
example, when you're watching a movie that's full of suspense and there's a lot of interest in that, and you're like really looking at that screen, sometimes you don't even notice there's a bell ringing or there's a phone ringing. So that is what, that's actually hypnosis. You're completely into that movie.
So that means whenever we are absolutely absorbed into
Yes.
something, we are in that
So there's a heightened awareness. You're able to notice the small changes and details of the screen. That's heightened awareness. So again, making it very simple, hypnotherapy is a therapeutic modality that uses relaxation, focused attention to help us get into a heightened state of awareness, to help us work on some patterns that are repetitive, that are probably something we need to work on. It could be maybe fear, phobia, exam anxiety, adding on to relationship issues. Maybe we all have some habits, adding to some habit generation. So hypnotherapy is a modality and tool where you're completely conscious. It's not that when you're in hypnosis or you're under hypnosis, you're not aware of what's happening around you. So when I'm in hypnosis, I will be aware that there's a bell ringing. I will hear that. I will be aware that the electricity has gone. But yes, at the same time, I will be able to access, I will be in a deeper state of relaxation, heightened awareness. And in that state, the hypnotherapist can actually give some suggestions that are basically towards the desired behavior. So hypnotherapy is something that is not something, very outdoor.
It is not that mysterious as we know.
It's not state is an everyday, actually, before sleeping. And once you get up, like I said before also,
Right.
we are in that state of, mild hypnosis. So that's why we always say that if you want to train something, you use the time before you sleep. So hypnotherapy is a beautiful modality which actually has a very deep effect if it is practiced by a trained
Professional,
therapist.
yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Always go for a trained therapist.
So now we have a very quick yet very interesting part, that is rapid fire. Coffee with someone made it very popular. So let's do it. Writing goals on paper versus just thinking them in our mind. What works better?
Obviously, writing your goals on paper, and that works better.
One myth about subconscious mind you wanted to break.
That subconscious mind is fixed, and we cannot. If it is fixed, I don't need to do anything about it. Like people say, this is the way I am. There is something that definitely is fixed, but we can really work around our subconscious.
Oh, that's what we are saying. It is trainable.
We train it. We can definitely work around.
Perfect. So there is a saying that whatever we are doing, we use 10% of our conscious and it is governed by 90% of our subconscious. Truth or myth?
So this is not exactly a true statement. At any point of time, we are using for different activities, we are using different parts of the brain. So definitely, all the parts of the brain are not used for every activity, but also that
Neither completely true, not
yeah,
a
it doesn't
myth.
mean that we're only using 10% of our
So one very interesting. Subconscious mind cannot differentiate between imagination and reality.
Subconscious mind can differentiate between reality and imagination, but the thing is that if the imagination is very vivid and with a lot of emotion, that can impact the subconscious mind. Like for example, when we are using affirmations, we need to not only repeat that in a very mechanical way, we need to add a lot of imagination and emotion to it. So that does impact.
As if we are feeling it.
Yeah, so we have to make it more. It's as if it's happening in the real context. So definitely that has a lot of impact.
Positive affirmation can change your life.
So again, it's not completely true, not completely false, because yes, positive.
As you told that this is a tool.
Yeah, it is something that has to be again accompanied with consistent action, and only affirmations, like I said, in a very mechanical way will not be helpful. They have to be coming out from a space of a lot of, feeling, emotion, and very good imagery. So, and then they have to be a little realistic as well. Without action, they will not be faithful. So, just if someone is thinking that I can just use affirmations and it's going to change my life, that is not true.
Perfect. So last one on the card. Stress is always bad.
No, so this is definitely a myth. Stress, some amount of stress is actually required. In fact, we have a term called use stress that's required for us to perform well.
I agree to this.
Yeah, so a basic optimal level of stress helps us actually become a little more alert. It helps us use our abilities. It helps us go out of our comfort zone. So if it's a good stress, which we say optimal level of stress, it actually helps us get better than what we are.
Perform
it's
better.
required actually to be able
Yes.
to do well. But yes, when it is the level of stress is too much for a very long extended period, which is something that the body cannot cope, then it is not good for us.
Anything in moderation is good,
Yeah,
basically.
So the thing is that a lot of times we say don't stress, do not a little bit of, I actually say it as something like a little hyper, we can say it a little bit of arousal state where we're a little alert and we're a little bit of stress is good. It will help us perform
Better.
use our abilities to the maximum.
Great. So this was great, revealing, enlightening. With this, we are coming to the last question of this session, which I really wanted all of us to know: when to go to a professional for training our subconscious or for that habit building or anything.
So that's a good question in the sense that we all, in a daily life, we have suggested some strategies that can help us
Yes, that's why I asked.
train us,
What are the situations?
work on our habits. But at the same time, there's sometimes we face some repetitive patterns habits, or some kind of issues which need a more structured and professional
One being
help.
hypnosis.
Yeah, and so sometimes if we are like normal, like again, like I said that if everyone feels everyone experiences some kind of anxiety, some kind of fear from time to time. But if that fear or anxiety is so crippling that it's interfering in their daily life, like for example, say situations where you cannot speak on stage, you do not want to come on stage. Sometimes some children start getting so scared of going to school, they have developed school anxiety, or for that matter, like you talked about addiction, smoking, tobacco,
Stage fear.
or that for that matter, fear of flying, or for that matter, when you have some repetitive, relationship issues where probably we are not able to manage our anger to the I'm not talking about normal anger, but where in anger we're not able to manage ourselves to the extent that we do something that's destructive for the others as well as us.
Harming
These are all
ourselves.
situations where we need to be consulting specialist, a professional, like we do, consult professionals in all other areas, bank, nutrition, be it planning our taxes, planning our finances, understanding, how we
Everything.
need to do our houses. So,
Absolutely.
I
Absolutely.
think that is the time when
So this session was so enlightening. I would say it more than once, but this feels like this needs more than one session. So let us know if you want to know more about it, more about how to train our subconscious mind. Please drop in comments. What is your question? We would definitely plan for a part 2. Thank you so much, Dr. Moksha. This was amazing, and this was really helpful. I am sure it's for me, for anyone and everyone watching this episode, is going to help them combat a lot of problems and become a better person if they follow what you said. Very simple things we can really implement in our daily lives from today, right? Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.